We have a right to be annoyed sometimes if we ask questions and people do not give us a straight answer. It can be annoying and frustrating. We can experience it as very rude or downright misleading and evasive. But sometimes it can be helpful when people answer a question with another question, and in doing so they help us to reframe and rethink what it is we're asking and where we are coming from. In John's Gospel, Jesus is always reframing the question, and how it usually happens is Jesus is asked one question, but he answers a different one, which is very similar, I think, to answering a question with a different question. In the reading that we are about to hear, and it's John chapter 6, verses 24 to 35, in the course of one single conversation, Jesus does that. Jesus answers a different question to the one he's been asked no less than 3 times on the trot. So listen out. Listen out to the question that Jesus is asked, and then the question that he actually answers. So when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they themselves got into the boat and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly, I tell you that you were looking for me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For it is on him that God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him in whom he has sent." So they said to him, "What sign are you going to give to us then, so that we may see it and believe you? What work are you performing? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Then Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." So did you see how Jesus changes the question? The first question is a when question from the crowd. "Rabbi, when did you come here?" A fairly straightforward, factual question. But Jesus does not answer that question. What he actually answers is more a why question. Why were you looking for me in the first place? To which the answer is not because you saw the sign that I performed, but simply because your bellies were filled with bread. You didn't really get the point. So what starts out as a straightforward, factual when question, Jesus answers and reframes as a why question. Why is it so important that you know where I am and what I'm doing? Then straight away we get a what question from the crowd. What must we do to perform the works of God? And there again, it's a very practical question, a doing question. What must we do? And Jesus does not answer that question. He answers a different one, and it is an in whom question. In whom must you believe in order to do the works of God? And the answer is, of course, the one whom God sends. And of course, as the readers, we know that that is Jesus himself. The what question then becomes an in whom question. It's reframed. And then the final one that goes into the greatest depth. What sign, the crowds asked Jesus, are you going to give? And again, it's a factual question. Just tell us the answer, Jesus. What is it that you can show us? And Jesus, for a third time, does not answer the question he's given, but reframes the question, who gives the true bread from heaven? Is it Moses? Well, no, it is me, it is I. And then we come to that, one of those really well-known and classic expressions of Jesus, of his own identity, I am the bread of life. Do you see how Jesus reframes what were in the first instance really quite practical questions about the experience of the crowd and what they feel they need to know, and Jesus refocuses them all on himself. Why are you looking for me? Who is it? In whom must you believe? And who gives the bread from heaven? And they're all focused on Jesus himself. And I wonder, thinking about our own experience as the church and as Christian disciples, in the general world in which we live, but the specifics maybe also of the pandemic experiences we've all had, we will be full of questions, and many of those questions will be very practical ones, and maybe ones that we do need to ask and find a suitable answer. How will we come out of the pandemic? What is it that we need to have learned? What are the things that we need to do differently? When will we be able to get back to some kind of normality? How will the church respond to the challenges of this age? And what is it that we need to do the works of God? And all of those questions sound really similar to the ones that the crowd asks of Jesus in our story. And we need answers. We need to pursue those questions, of course, in all kinds of practical ways. But I think we know in our heart, whatever questions we're asking, we need to follow a similar line to what happens in our gospel reading, that the who question is the fundamental one. Who is it that we are following? Whose life is it that we are seeking to embody in whatever it is we need to do? To whom do we need to call others in the world around us to faith and to follow in their own living? And of course the answer is Jesus, the bread of life. And so how does this gospel passage challenge us? Not to ignore the questions, the practical and immediate questions we face, but to remember that they always need to be reframed around that question of who is it that we follow? Who is Jesus to us? Who is Jesus in relation to his Father? And how does that shape all of our questioning and searching and serving as his followers?